Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic. Would limiting the age of the president to 65 be something you'd support? Why or why not? I think the US should implement a ranked choice voting system. I think that will have a much bigger impact on our political system. This concept is carrying more and more weight with me lately. My beef with presidential elections is that by the time I get any say, Pennsylvania, all I get to do is pick which is the lesser of two evils, a binary decision laid in front of me. I really want to see the panic on politicians' faces after the first major election with ranked choice. The Republicans and the Democrats would almost certainly still win, but I feel like finding out that both parties are more people's second pick than first would terrify them. Yeah. Even arguments about mental fitness aside, I think we should limit to candidates who would at least be reasonably expected to spend a couple decades in whatever world they create. I like your reasoning. Ironically, the best bet to getting something like this implemented would have been electing Bernie. Y'all coulda had a bad bitch. Why stop at the presidency? How about for all elected officials? More importantly, the unelected officials. I loved RBG, but 80s and IITs is too ducking old to be on the Supreme Court. 80s and IITs is too ducking old to be on the Supreme Court. In Ireland, Supreme Court judges have to retire at the age of 70. The president sets the precedent. 65 is when it's time for people to retire. Sit down, make room, live out your days in peace. Set that tone for the American people. Agreed. If the average American is expected to retire around 65, why not the president? It isn't that people are expected to retire around 65, rather, it's that people are expected not to retire until around 65, 67 now, if we're talking about Social Security. Yes, absolutely. Both Joe Biden and Donald Trump are way too old to be president. So was Reagan when he ran 40+ years ago. Hell, I'd even go further and cap the ages for all elected officials at 65. At 69 years 348 days old, Reagan was the oldest president ever elected when he won. Trump broke that by almost a year when he was elected at 70 years 220 days old. Then Biden obliterated that when he was elected at 78 years 61 days old. We're trending in the wrong direction with this. Biden was older entering office than Reagan when he left office, the oldest president when leaving office. There was more less time between Lincoln's second inauguration and Biden's birth than there was between Biden's birth and his own inauguration. March 4, 1865 November 20, 1942 equals 77 years, 8 months, 16 days. November 20, 1942 January 20, 2021 equals 78 years, 2 months. Edit, I said it backwards. And term limits for Congress. Age cap of 65 for elected officials would effectively do that. Most of the top people for both parties in the House and Senate are over 70 even. All politicians should fuck off the second they hit retirement age. Those who would hit it during their term shouldn't be allowed to run for office. That's my view as well. People retirement age or older should still be able to function as advisors, but they should not be the decision makers themselves at that point. Isn't the retirement age 72 now? I feel like I saw that somewhere. Edit, it's 67. It'll probably be like 80 by the time I retire. 72 is related to when you are required to begin taking minimum distributions from retirement accounts. Yes, I would. And if you need to know why, just look at Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Dianne Feinstein to name a few. This country has way too many geriatrics running it. I would think old Chucky Grossley would set a precedent for both age and term limits, but that's none of my business. I don't see how we could determine that 65 is the magic number for such a cutoff. People age at different rates. There are folks with dementia in their 40s and some 90 years olds are still sharp as a needle. The better question to discuss is how to fix the way the executive is chosen. Is there a way to do this that would tend to yield better executives and stop putting partisan hacks in office? Thank you. I get the concerns about too long careers, health issues and not keeping up with the times, but making a sweeping cutoff just sounds like an old people suck and need to just retire and get out of the way attitude, which I don't like. It needs to be a case-by-case thing. Feels like something voters should be able to decide for themselves. Age restrictions already exist on the lower end. Would you support amending the Constitution to remove the age restrictions for House, Senate and President? Personally, I think an upper and lower limit is justified. If the lower is, then it's impossible to argue that the upper isn't, since they derive from the same premise. I just want term limits across the board. I don't like old people making decisions that play out over decades, but I also don't like saying somebody can't do something strictly because they are old. They might be the best person, but we never get the best person for president. The two-party system is broke. So age limit on presidency doesn't really matter. They'll find some other garbage person to put up there that'll keep the status quo going. But screw this 30+ years in Congress nonsense. Term limits shift power away from elected officials and gives it to the lobbyists, who, having no term limits, will have the experience, connections, and tenure to control and manipulate all the fresh young congresspeople coming through the revolving door. They may be part of the solution. Obviously, the ridiculous amount of money in politics is another that needs to be addressed. I would support it. Not only for the obvious issue of old people have mental health decline and the debate of mental disorders like dementia, but a geriatrial thing too. People who are 65 and up lived totally different lives than me at 26, even if we lived generally in the same or similar location, financial status, and social groups. Some of these politicians say they worked at McDonald's when in college too and bought a house and paid for their education at just $2 an hour. In 1960, $2 had the same buying power as $18. That's more than my previous factory job, which was just $16 an hour. How do you explain that to them? Even Bernie wants a $15 minimum wage, which is not even a living wage anymore. Even Bernie wants a $15 minimum wage, which is not even a living wage anymore. I think that's him trying to raise it to a number that has a chance. From what I know of Bernie, he'd want it even higher if he thought it could happen. Gotta ease the people into things. I am going to be the unpopular opinion here. I think having an age limit really does take away experienced candidates who have dedicated their lives to public service. While the majority of those people don't actually run for office, I think we do underplay how important experience and wisdom is important for a leader. Nelson Mandela was 75 when he was elected president. I have had professors in college who were so intelligent, compassionate, and overall good people who were over the age of 65. I know that the majority of people who run for president or who are in politics don't fit that narrative, but I think it's still important to keep that door open. Appreciate your voice of reason here. 65 is not that old. Maybe 70, and it should apply to Congress. We should not have people with dementia running the country. It's not the dementia I'm worried about. It's the lack of change and moving forward with the time/technology. Someone who does understand the basics of the internet should not be writing laws on it. This completely. We've been stuck with people with no understanding of modern society and culture for the past 30 years, and it looks to stay that way unless somehow the majority of our government decides to retire. Half the fuckers fall asleep during meetings. It's like a damn old folks home that snore themselves awake to go, "Ha, what am I voting on?" A Democrat/Republican came up with it. Bah, I vote nay. Then fall back asleep. LMAO, while they are old. As a young person who has been to congressional hearings as part of my job, I cannot blame them for falling asleep. I don't care about age, only cognitive ability. There are plenty of 65+ who are mentally sharp and carry a wealth of experience. I would maybe support cognitive exams for all candidates, but the process could easily be corrupted. Ultimately, I think voters should be able to vote for whoever they choose, and make their own determination about mental fitness. And candidates ought to do the right thing and step down if their mental abilities have been compromised. Yeah, this seems like it would be a very bizarre law to pass. If you don't like someone who's over 65, don't vote for them. DEMs could have voted for Kamala, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Booker, Young, but they didn't. They voted for Biden. This means either Reddit youngsters do not reflect the American people and / or that we have some hypocrites in the thread. This means either Reddit youngsters do not reflect the American people and / or that we have some hypocrites in the thread. Hand over both buttons, sweaty. The president isn't the main problem. The main problem is Congress, then the president. Term limits for everything appointed or elected, including the Supreme Court. I'd set the age limit at 70, but if someone is elected or appointed at 69, their term is a single year. So as an example, the presidency has a 2-term limit of 4 years apiece, don't change that. Congressional terms are 2 years, so set a limit of 4 to 5 terms-ish. Supreme Court, maybe set terms of 5 years apiece, with a limit of 3 terms. We don't need a government with dynasties of inertia. ETA, I love the responses this is getting. Yari actual discussion. What we have right now is inherently flawed and undemocratic, with large swaths of our representatives not effectively representing much beyond their own political ideology, and, in various cases, representing their monetary sources rather than their constituents. The above is a pipe dream, of course, but there's got to be something better. Term limits are bad policy that lead to ineffective lawmakers and more power in the hands of lobbyists. They're also inherently undemocratic.